Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, verse number 1 and 2. Arjuna Vacha Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Kshetram Kshetrajnam Evacha Etad Veditum Ichhami Jnanam Gneyam Chakeshava Shri Bhagavan Vacha Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetram Iti Abhidhiyate Etad Yo Veti Tam Prahu Kshetrajna eti tad vidaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Arjuna said, O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. Purport. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetrajna, its knower, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all these, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is a field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. That field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called kshetra, or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called kshetrajna, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age he undergoes so many changes of body, and yet he still is still one person remaining. Thus, there is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Dehi no asmin, that the living entity is within the body, and the body is changing from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and from youth to old age. And the person who knows the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly Kshetragna. Sometimes we think, I'm happy, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a dog, I'm a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things used. Similarly, we also understand by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called the Kshetragna, the knower of the field of activities, and the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the supersoul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness, they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. This also is explained. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So welcome to this new chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And as we can see, Bhagavad Gita is questions and answers. Arjuna is asking questions and Krishna is responding and giving reply to Arjuna. So here we can see Arjuna has so many questions. He wants to know what is Prakriti, which is material nature, who is the Purusha, the enjoyer, what is the Kshetra, what is the Kshetragna, and also wants to know what is knowledge and what is object of knowledge. Now, Krishna, in this very first verse that we read, he is answering some of his questions. And the answer is very, very simple. He says Prakriti is material nature, and Purusha, the enjoyer, is Krishna himself. Now, when we go to verse number 23, Krishna will explain it more elaborately that he is the enjoyer. And Kshetra is this body, this, the field, the field of activities. It's this body. And we will learn more about this when we go to verse number 6. Then he talks about Kshetragna, which means the knower of the field. So who is the knower of this body? Obviously, it is the soul. And also, the knower means he knows the difference between body and soul. That is very, very important. And Krishna, of course, we are the knower of our own body, right? I don't know what's going on in your head or in your body or whatever, right? But Krishna is the knower of all the bodies of all living entities. And we will read more about it, in the other verses also. Now, Arjuna's question was, what is knowledge? And Krishna says, if a person can understand the difference between the body and the soul, that is the knower of the body, that is knowledge. Now, in verse number 8 and 18, Krishna is going to explain more about this knowledge. But what about the object of knowledge? What do you think is the object of knowledge? The whole Bhagavad Gita is being spoken by Krishna. So Krishna is the object of knowledge. That is. And verse number 18, we'll get more information. Now, in this purport, this long purport that Srila Prabhupada has given us is describing in such simple terms, very, very easy to understand. Just to understand, I am not this body, right? This body is just a field of activity. And if a person is attached to the body, then is considered to be conditioned, right? Condition means is kind of entrapped, right? He's entrapped. The soul is entrapped by the body. And because of that consciousness, the person tries to lord it over. As soon as, we get an opportunity, we want to lord it over everybody, whether it's a spouse, the kids, friends, colleagues. Of course, we cannot lord it over our boss, but we try our best to lord it over. Why? Because we want to be on the top. We want to be like controlling. That controlling nature is there within us. So we get entrapped and then we start behaving in such a way. So, based on our consciousness, based on our past activities, we have been given a particular type of body, right? This is called a particular type of field, and body includes the senses, right? The eyes, the ears, the nose. So these senses are part of the body, and generally conditioned bodies, conditioned people, they want to enjoy this body, this particular body that a person has got. Enjoy what? Enjoy the senses. To hear something, which is really going to enthrall us, to see something, to hear, to smell, to taste. So the senses are just going wild everywhere. Why? Because the body is conditioned, the soul is entrapped, and the soul, and because of lack of knowledge, all this happens. And then what happens when a person starts getting into the cycle of enjoyment? Let me enjoy this, let me enjoy that, maybe if I buy that, maybe if I go there. So all these, these desires and all these all go on, and then what happens? Then there is a difficulty in coming out of this conditioning. And Bhagavad Gita helps us to remove that conditioning in a very step by step process. Like it is also said, the Bhagavad Gita is like a yoga ladder, right? Starts with karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is topmost, right? That is the goal of every reader of Bhagavad Gita, or every person who's hearing Bhagavad Gita. Bhakti yoga. Bhakti means devotion. Yoga means connecting with the Supreme Lord in devotional service. So, if the Kshetragna, that means the knower, does not identify with the body. See, if supposing with the help of the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, I understand I am not this body, body is different, the soul is different. When a person understands that, then he is considered to be a kshetragna, means the knower of the body. He is a knower, and it is not difficult for such a person to understand the difference. Now, in chapter 2, there are 22 verses on the spirit soul. Krishna has given so much knowledge about the soul. What are the qualities of the soul? What is the measurement of the soul? Where does it reside? What is the condition of the soul? Is it like entrapped? It is conditioned by the body. What is it? And in fact, Prabhupada in this purport also talks about that famous verse from chapter 2, Dehi no asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatrana muhyati. As the embodied soul, again he's talking about embodied soul, continuously passes from boyhood to youth to old age. Similarly, that soul passes on to another body at the time of death, and a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Now, when we see someone die in front of us, or when we come to know someone has died, we feel really sad, right? Because if we have attachment to that person, of course, we are attached to the body, right? We don't, like when we meet people, we don't visualize that, oh, this is not just the body, but there is a spirit soul within that body, right? We don't do that. We generally identify with the body. And if we have to, talk about someone, then we only talk in relation to the body, right? Like if I want, to say, Charanya, I want, remember that lady, and if I want to describe, what will I say? Oh, the one with the long hair, or the one that's very fair, or the one that has beautiful eyes. Isn't that so? That's how we, because of bodily concept of life. So if we can somehow or the other understand that, see, when I was 5 years old, I did not look like this at all. I look totally different, right? That's true for all of us. We look different when we were 5, then we look different when we were 20, and then we look different when we are 40 or 60 or whatever, right? But the soul remains the same. The soul which is within the body, within the heart, that remains the same. That does not change. And that is what Srila Prabhupada is also explaining in his purport, that we must give up these bodily designations. That is the basic foundation of Bhagavad Gita, to understand I am not this body. Bodily designations, like Prabhupada mentions, I am a woman, I'm a man, I'm white, I'm black, I'm rich, I'm poor. All those are bodily designations, and we must understand that these bodily designations, they are different from the knower of the body. The knower is the kshetragna, that is the spirit soul. Now, in the purport, that long purport that we read today, Srila Prabhupada also talks about the division of Bhagavad Gita, the first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and now we are at the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Now, the very first 6 chapters, Krishna explained to Arjuna about the body, the soul, the knower, which is the soul, and also how the living entities, they can understand Krishna. Now, chapter 7 through 12, Krishna explains. Okay, now he's explained about the body and the soul and karma and all that. Now he's explaining from 7 to 12. He explained what is the relationship between Krishna and us, the living entities, and how we can build that relationship with him through devotional service, and how Krishna is the supreme and we are subordinate. Now, unfortunately, most people in this world don't like to be called subordinates, right? Like supposing the boss says, you are below me, you are my subordinate. That's like, oh, don't make me feel so little, right? I mean, you have a body, I have a body, you have a soul, I have a soul. Of course, you can't say that to the boss. He'll think you've gone crazy. But the point is, we don't like to be subordinates. We want to be right on top, the boss, the enjoyer, the controller, right? But no, Bhagavad Gita teaches us that Jivera Swarup hoy Krishnera Nitya Das, that the constitutional position of the soul, the spirit soul, is to be the eternal servant of the Lord. Eternal, not just 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, 1 year. No, eternal servant of the Lord. Once we can understand our position, that we are not the supreme, we are not the Lord, we are not the controller, we will feel much, much happier and peaceful, because we have forgotten who we are, we've forgotten what is our relationship with the Lord, and so we are suffering. Now, one may say, I am not suffering. I have a good job. My health is very good. I have enough money, good bank balance. I'm enjoying life. Why are you saying misery? Right now, we may be enjoying, but it's not going to last forever, right? Just like when I was a sweet 16, did it last forever? No, it did not. It's gone. Just like that, it's gone. And before you know, 26 becomes 62, right? Soon it is. So nothing stays forever, but our relationship with the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, is forever. It is eternal. So Krishna is trying to explain to us that because we have forgotten our eternal nature, our servitorship, that's why we are suffering. But with the help of knowledge, we can revive that consciousness, right? We can, it is there within our heart. We all see, what do we all believe in? We all believe in being, I mean, most people believe in being good to others, being good yourself, not harm anyone, kind of, be God conscious, have fear of God, things like that, right? That all we have heard. But with the help of knowledge, we can revive our original consciousness, and that is to be conscious of Krishna. And we can also approach him then finally. In seventh chapter, Krishna talked about 4 kinds of people who surrender, and four kinds of people who do not surrender, right? So the four kinds of people that even Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport is Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mam, yeah, Jana Sukritino Arjuna. Sukritino means pious. Four kinds of pious people surrender to Krishna. What? Artho, Arthato, Jigyaso, Jnani. Four kinds. So those who are distressed, those who want money, those who are inquisitive, and those who want knowledge. These are the four kinds of pious people who, come to Krishna consciousness. Now, who is the best among them? The one who wants knowledge. But still, Krishna says, if you want money, come to me. If you're distressed, come to me. If you are just curious about me, come to me. And if you want knowledge, here is knowledge, the Bhagavad Gita. So, from this chapter 13 onwards, Krishna is going to explain how we, the living entities, the spirit soul, they come in contact with this material nature, and how we can get delivered from this material world, and by with the help of devotional service. Now, service we all have to do whether we like it or not, right? We serve our senses, we serve our body. As soon as we wake up, the first thing we do is serve the body, right? We serve the spouse, the kids, the family, the boss, the nation, society, relatives. We are just serving all the time, right? Why do you go to job? To serve the family. Simple as that, right? So if we are serving anyway, why not serve the Lord also, right? Because serving materially on the material platform is going to give us some happiness, for some time. It's temporary. There's a beginning and there's an end. But if we serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, then that spiritual bank balance gets carried over to the next body. So there's no loss in hearing Bhagavad Gita. So this is how chapter 13 is starting. Let's see what Krishna has to say in verse number 3. O sign of Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. What's the beauty of this verse? Krishna says, that is my opinion. That means he's giving us a choice, right? You want to take it? You're welcome to take this knowledge. If you have your own opinion, that's fine too. He's not forcing it on us. He's saying that because he's the Supreme Lord, he is situated as the super soul in the heart of every living entity. That's why he knows all the bodies. He is the knower of all the bodies. He knows what is going on in our body, in our mind, in our heart. Everything he knows. And Prabhupada says in the purport that in this chapter, three topics will be studied. One is the Lord, the living entity, and matter. It's very important to understand, that this body is made of matter, right? But the soul is spiritual. Mamai Vamsha Jivaloke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Krishna says, Mamai Vamsha. Amsha means part. He says, Mamai means mine. All living entities are my eternal fragmental parts. We are all parts of the Supreme Lord. That's why we are called children of God. That's why we are the sons and daughters of the Supreme Lord. Now, each body, as we learned in chapter 2, that there's a difference between body and the soul. So in the body, so this body, there is the gross body and then there's a subtle body. Gross body is what we can see, but subtle body we cannot see. And the subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Now, this subtle body, according to Bhagavad Gita, subtle body is situated within the heart. And in the heart, besides the subtle body, is the soul and the super soul. So there are two souls, individual soul and the super soul. So in this, in fact, in the purport of verse number 3, let's see. Prabhupada says, because the super soul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna says, I'm also the knower, but I'm not the individual knower of the body. I'm the super knower. I'm present in every body as the Paramatma or super soul. So it's important to understand that, we may think that, oh, if I go in a dark room and do something, no one is going to see it and, I won't be caught. No, the super soul is within the heart and is seeing each and every activity of ours, is also aware of our thoughts, of our desires, of our actions. So he is not only the witness, he is the controller, and he's also the sanctioner, the one who sanctions our desires. Now, Arjuna also had one question: what is knowledge? Now, one who studies the field of activity, which is this body, and the knower of field is very minutely, understands it as per the Bhagavad Gita. As Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita, then that person attains knowledge. So the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita is that it is not based on blind faith, that, oh, I say this, so you accept it. No, it is very systematically, very scientifically explaining to us all the information that we require, all the knowledge that we require, right? Krishna has already explained that yes, we are the knowers of our own body, but Krishna is the knower of all the bodies, not just human beings, but all living entities, whether it is, insects, reptiles, aquatics, no matter what, he is aware of all living entities. Nice example Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport, that just like the citizen is aware of his patch of land, like, okay, I say, this is my house. I am aware this is my house. But the government is aware of all the properties, right? All the patches of land. So similarly, of course, in olden days, there used to be a king. So just like a citizen knows his patch of land, the king knows about all the properties. So we have to understand we are the proprietor of this body, of our own body, but Krishna is the proprietor of all the bodies. That's very important to understand, that this body we have received in this lifetime is on lease. There is a lease that we have signed, that after X number of years, we have to vacate this apartment. We have to leave this body and we have to go find another apartment to live in. Why should we struggle? We all have seen, we have moved a lot, right? From one place to another to another. And it's a very big job to do that, right? Pack everything. First of all, we have the habit of having too many things, right? More than what we require, more than what is necessary, right? So then what happens when we have to move? We have so much packing to do. Not only that, after we move to the next apartment, the problem of unpacking is there, right? That is also another tedious job. So why are we struggling life after life to take on one body, then go to the next body, then go to the next body, perform actions, and based on our actions get another body? Why not just break the cycle, right? Just break the cycle, follow the Bhagavad Gita, follow the instructions of Krishna, and just break the cycle and go to a place where there is no birth, no disease, no old age, no death, permanent happiness. Over here in this material world, happiness has a beginning and it has an end, right? Now, what has come out in the market? What is the latest thing that's come out? Some techie thing. iPhone 12, right? Ooh, I want iPhone 12. And my grandson was telling me there's iPhone 12 mini, there's iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, correct? Is that correct? Yeah, something like that. Yes. So that excitement and desire is there. I want it. Now, once we get it, happy, open the packet, look at that, such a beautiful iPhone. After a few weeks, the happiness is gone. That iPhone no longer gives us the happiness that it gave us on day one, right? Beginning and end. Now the mind is calculating what next. What can I get next that is going to make me happy? So we are just running after material things, after this and that and that. So important to understand, we are not even the proprietor of this body. This body belongs to the Supreme Lord. We are just secondary proprietors, right? Sometimes we have something called you sublease it, right? You have a lease and then you sublease it, like give it to someone else on lease, right? So that person is not actually the owner of the apartment, is just got it on lease. So we are secondary proprietors. So we must understand that we have this body which is the field of activities. We the spirit soul are kshetragna, the knower of the field, which means we understand that this field, this body is temporary, right? This body has the senses, but we have to understand that unless we control these senses, we will go crazy. We have to control these senses. Just like Rishikesha, Krishna is called Rishikesha, which means he is the master of the senses. So if somehow or the other we can satisfy the Supreme Lord, then we automatically will get satisfied. A nice example Prabhupada usually quotes is of watering the root of the tree, right? We water the root and the whole tree gets nourished. We don't have to separately water the leaves and the flowers and the fruits and no branches. All we have to do is just water the roots. So somehow or the other, if we can understand that Krishna is the supernova, he's the witness, he's the guide. This body is kshetra, which is the field, the soul, is the knower, and Krishna knows both the body and the soul, and he knows all the living entities. So it's important to understand the distinction. So these three verses are talking, so much about the field of activity so that we act properly, right? When Krishna is talking about activities, we have to be careful what kind of activities are we performing. Are these activities according to the laws of the Supreme Lord? Just like the state has laws, are we following the laws of the Supreme Lord? That is very, very important to understand. Now, Arjuna's one question was knowledge, right? Jnana. So Krishna says to understand the constitution of the body and the soul and the super soul inside, that is knowledge. Krishna says that is my opinion. Now again, it's up to us whether we accept it or we don't accept it. So we also need to understand the position of the material nature, Arjuna's questions, material nature, the soul, the body, the super soul. There should be no confusion. It should be very clear. Now that we have come, all the way from chapter 1 to 13, by now we have understood so much of the Bhagavad Gita where there should be no confusion. Am I this body or am I the soul? Right? Now that we have understood this is knowledge, which is gyan, now we need to convert it to vigyan, right? Realized knowledge. So when we practice the knowledge, then practice is called vigyan, right? Realization. So for us to become self-realized, we need to put this Bhagavad Gita into practice. Very nicely, Prabhupada in his purport explains that talking about confusion, we should understand the difference between the painter, the painting, and the easel, right? We cannot look at the easel and say, oh, that's the painter, or can't look at the painter and say, oh, that's the easel, right? We have to know the distinction. So that is very, very important. In fact, in chapter number 5, the very last verse, when Krishna is talking about, in the beginning, the first verse of this chapter, Arjuna's question was about Purusha, right? Who is a Purusha? Purusha is Krishna, the enjoyer. He is the super enjoyer, the supreme enjoyer. And that Krishna has already explained to us in chapter number 5, very last verse. What does he say? Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam gnatva mam shantim richati. Shanti means peace of mind, right? That is a peace formula. If somehow or the other we can understand that Krishna, he is the bhokta, he is the enjoyer, and he is the Maha Ishvara, he is the supreme lord of all the demigods, then only we will be able to get some peace of mind. So out of these two knowers, the soul and the super soul, one is fallible and one is infallible, right? One is superior and one is inferior. So Krishna, he is situated like in chapter number 15, we will hear verse number 15, where Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sani vishto matah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Vedes cha. So what he's saying is that I am situated in everyone's heart. And from me, Krishna says, comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. So he's given us three options. So we as a super soul, and we as a soul are in the heart. Super soul is with us in the heart. He's waiting for us to make a choice. What do we want? Remember him? Okay. Forget him? Okay, no problem. Knowledge, then he'll give us the opportunity to get some knowledge about him. So we have to make that choice. Let's see today's last verse, number 4. Excuse me. Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. So again, talking about the field of activity and how it's important when we say that I am not this body, I am the soul, then we need to even understand how this body is constituted, right? And it's changing. What is this body made of? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are the material elements. This is what the body is composed of. And when we see when, the soul leaves the body starts disintegrating and goes back into the earth. So we can see that here Krishna is giving us knowledge that even this body undergoes changes, right? So, but it's important to understand who that knower of this body is, the spirit soul, and also the influences. So this body, which is the field of activities, and the knower, which is the soul, it's important to know what are these material elements that constitute this body. And I just explained to you earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Now, who is the controller of this body? What do you think? Who is the controller of this body? But people generally think I'm the controller of my body, right? We cannot even control the blinking of our eyes. Like, that game is there. Let's look at each other. Who can blink first, right? We cannot control that. That's beyond our control. So how can we say I'm the control of my body? How is the body changing? Where are these changes coming from? And what are the reasons for these changes? It's very important. So when we hear so much, excuse me, so much about the body and the soul, and the difference between body and the soul, and the conditioning of the body, etc., etc., it's very, very important to understand what is my ultimate goal. We already learned from chapter 2 onwards. So it's important to understand, take this knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and understand, first of all, the basic foundation. I am not this body, which means we should then practice this, right? When we put this into practice, for instance, that someone is very rude to us, is raising the voice and talking to us, insulting us, or shouting at us or whatever, yes, we feel hurt, but is it hurting the soul? No, that is for the body. And the reason we feel hurt is because we are what you call we are so attached to the body that we are, what is that word, uh, we are like only thinking about the body. Oh, this one said, huh, obsessed with the body. Yes, attached to the body so much that our consciousness is only working on the bodily platform. The soul doesn't get affected at all. The soul is pure. Right now it's covered, it's conditioned by the body, but actually it's pure. Why? Because it's part of the Supreme Lord. So Bhagavad Gita is giving us all this knowledge, and it's important to understand that one most important part to understand is, yes, there is a soul and there's a super soul, and they are not on the same level. Right? We should not think that, oh, soul is in the heart, super soul is in the heart, so we are equal. No, the super soul is way above. He's on the right top. He is the supreme. He is a supreme soul. So that difference also we need to understand. Not think that, oh, just because I'm part of the Supreme Lord, I'm also the Supreme Lord. No, we are just a tiny part of the Supreme Lord. So I'm going to end here. um, I'm going to end here. And if anyone has any questions.
I have a question.